Greetings, friends. Our theme for today is listening to the changing of the seasons. Here in the southern hemisphere, it is the spring equinox. And this is a time for sacred listening to what might be stirring within us. But in this reflection, I want to begin with talking about the word logos. This is the word used in John chapter 1. In the beginning was the Logos, translated as word. And the Logos was with God, and the Logos was God. And it goes on to say that through this Logos all things were created. Now, Victoria Lewis is someone who's involved in a movement called Wild Church, which she describes as worshipping outside buildings, entering into direct conversation with the holy as a spiritual practice. And many of us have been feeling called to worship outside of buildings. And so it's nice to know that we're moving in a collective when we find these kind of shifts taking place in ourselves. And she describes that we are part of a sacred conversation with all beings in the world. And this conversation is going on all the time. But we tend to be blind to this, deaf to this conversation that's happening all around us. But this awareness can be awakened through entering into a reverent and open-hearted approach with life, which connects us with this sacred conversation and our radical relationality with everything. She describes that the word logos means this relationality, which connects the sacredness of all things, the divine essence that Jesus embodied, gave expression to. And Victoria Lewis describes that the word logos is a call, a reminder, that we too are part of and invited to participate in the conversation that was there in the beginning, that holds together all things, that includes us. The practice of listening in and participating in the conversation with all that is connects us to a wild and wise God and connects us also to our own souls. Richard Rohr describes the word logos as the underlying creative intelligence and divine presence that shapes and connects all of reality. And he describes that it's the divine DNA in everything, an inherent pattern that makes the entire universe part of the beloved community of God. Another name for this is the universal Christ. And so Richard Rohr describes that we live in a Christ-soaked world, and Jesus showed us what this looks like when lived fully in human form. This term logos was only translated into the term word in the 4th century, and sadly it's come to mean an insipid mixture between the Bible and a kind of blonde-haired Jesus, and has lost the sense of the sacred relational vitality and creative essence that connects everything and calls us to deeply embody this, as Jesus showed us how to do. And in this way, through this living Logos who animates us all and breathes life in and through us, we are deeply and intricately interwoven with nature, with the whole, with one another. And so with that as a backdrop, I want to invite us into a reverent approach to the spring equinox. This is an invitation for us to bow to the wonder of the changing seasons, to feel spring in our bodies, in our souls, and to hear the invitation that the Spirit may be whispering to us in this new season. At the turning of the seasons, we have the opportunity to marvel at the gift of seasons, that the tilt in the Earth's axis means that we have such wondrous variation through the year. And sometimes we find that just as we are yearning for the new emergence of life, it starts to spring forth. Unfortunately, our modern lives can become so desensitized to nature, to these rhythms, shielded from the fullness of the changing seasons. And I think that we lose the vitality that is possible when we attune to these, the full blooming lushness of summer, giving way to the crisp, colourful ending of autumn, then the quiet, sometimes lonely barrenness of winter, and now the fresh growth pushing out all around us in the emergence of spring. And we humans have spent so much of our time and effort trying to dominate and control the seasons. But there's a profound wisdom that we can tap into if we allow ourselves to move with them, to let their different energies resonate through our bodies. Richard Rohr talks about nature as the first Bible. And as Psalm 19 verse 1 and 2 puts it, the heavens declare the glory of God, the skies proclaim the work of God's hands. Day after day they pour forth speech, night after night they display knowledge. Are we listening? Are we attuning? And so the invitation is to listen deeply to the changing of the seasons, to the emergence of spring, to listen with our eyes, our ears, our bodies, and our deep inner beings. Hear what the Spirit is stirring into life deep within us. Hear how the living Logos calls us into radical relationality with the fullness of life.